It's well balanced, it's filled with roundness, it has a big, soft body. Today, we're drinking Ripe Times. Hey guys, it's Jim here from Dr. Tankenstein with another episode of Beers of the British Isles. On today's show, we're drinking Ripe Times. This is a collaboration brew between Magic Rock, friends of the show, and Salt Beer Factory. The name, Ripe Times, I'm a bit confused. It kind of sounds like it should be a pun, but I can't for the life of me figure out what it's a pun of. Maybe it's not, maybe I'm overthinking it. If you guys can think of anything that Ripe Times is a pun of, please let me know. Yeah, Ripe Times, Magic Rock, Salt Beer Factory, two great breweries coming together, always good. So this is a 6.4% beer, and it's a NEIPA. It's a New England IPA, a self-confessed New England IPA, which is awesome because I feel like for a long time, you know, British breweries have been sort of edging their way in. You know, first we had hazy IPAs, then we had soft IPAs, then we had soft hazy IPAs. Now it seems breweries are finally coming out there and just saying, hey guys, we got New England IPAs. Like I say, 6.5% alcohol, no IBU information on this, but with it being a New England IPA, I imagine it's going to be quite low. Let me just recap for you, just in case you don't know or have forgotten. A New England IPA is basically the opposite of a traditional IPA. So a traditional IPA, you would be looking for something that has low to no malt character, very bitter, high bitterness, a lot of late dry hopping, and super crisp and clean, clear beer. A New England IPA, such as Ripe Times, is the opposite of that. You're looking at very low bitterness, very soft mouthfeel. They're described as a pillowy mouthfeel by people other than myself. Usually quite cloudy, and a little bit of malt character is desirable in a New England IPA. The dry hops they use are put right up front, which helps the yeast to kind of act on the dry hops, and that gives that nice fine haze that we come to love in a New England IPA. That's really the crux of it, is the haze. That's what visually separates the two styles. Okay, so this beer kind of has the malt bill of this is sort of classic Magic Rock. Golden Promise, they love Golden Promise. They have Munich malt, which is kind of becoming very trendy in New England IPAs for its kind of sweet, bready character. They got wheat, and they have oats in there as well. Now, wheat and oats come together to make a real nice hazy beer, so they're really not messing around with this haze thing. The hops are interesting. They use something called cryo hops in this. Again, that's kind of like Magic Rock like to do this. So the cryo hops they use are Citra and Simcoe. Both kind of very citrusy, kind of not piney, citrusy hops basically. Citra, it's in the name. Now, what cryo hops are is they're kind of like a hop extract almost. So they get the hops to a very, very low temperature. They do some preparatory science on it basically, and they extract all the hop stuff but leave the plant matter behind. In a beer like this, which I'm guessing is very heavily dry hopped, that goes a long way in the brewery because it means that you don't end up with mounds and mounds of plant material left at the bottom of the fermenter, which kind of just soaks up beer. You know, if you imagine the bottom of a cafetiere, if you make coffee, the bottom bit of coffee you're never going to get because it's just full of coffee grounds. Now, they also use T90 pellets, T90 hops. These are basically just hops kind of pelletized. If you saw the episode I did with our special guest Sophie on Jaipur, I had some hop pellets out for you to look at, basically. So if you're confused, maybe look at that. Maybe just Google T90 pellets. They're both sort of brand names of hops, and it's quite interestingly, the T90 pellets that they do use are Simcoe again, so a double shot of Simcoe, and something called Idaho 7, which I've just never heard of. Maybe I'm misinterpreting it. Maybe that's not a hop at all. Maybe that's something else. I don't know. Now the yeast they use in this is London Fog. Again, quite typically the guys from Huddersfield there, Magic Rock. London Fog. So I mentioned earlier about early dry hopping for haze because the yeast acts on the hops. There are only certain yeasts that can do that. London Fog is one of them. So this is all really coming together to, in my eyes, make a real nice New England IPA. So what am I imagining? Exactly what I said earlier. I'm imagining a nice citrus, fruity hop flavor and aroma. I'm imagining a real kind of sweet malt backbone because it's gonna be low bitterness. I really, really hope it's low bitterness because that kind of marks the style. You know, let's just dive in and find out what they've done with this thing. Okay, we're all poured out. I've got a nice cold beer in a nice small glass, I guess. First things first, I mentioned the haze. The haze is really important in this beer, and it does have it to an extent. It's not the haziest beer I've ever seen, which is fine. Again, like I've said before, sometimes these beers that you get from supermarkets, you never quite know how long they've been on the shelf. So sometimes the haze can kind of fall to the bottom, whatever haze is. I don't know. Head retention looks good though. When I poured it, it was super, super thick, and it's still kind of sticking around now, even despite my my rubbish glass. The carbonation is very soft. I know that already because when you open the can, it doesn't hiss or anything like that. So nice soft carbonation. The head is still persistent though, a very, very soft haze, and this real nice straw color that you can see here, this nice light yellow color, that's the Golden Promise at work. So they've obviously used a very high amount of Golden Promise. Oats and wheat don't really impart any color at all. Golden Promise gives you a very, very light color, and I guess that's why you would use it over other cultivars. Right, I'm getting really thirsty. Let's see what we got here. That's good. So, I'm going to be honest, even though they've used those cryo hops, which reduce a lot of the plant matter, and the T90 pellets, I guess also, do they? I don't think T90 pellets really help in that respect at all. There is still quite a grassy flavour to it, which is fine. You know, I'm enjoying it. The scent, if you give it a sniff as well, there is kind of a grassy, piney scent as well. So the citrus aspect of it that I thought was going to be massive is turning out not really to be that prominent, which is, you know, just fine. I guess I was just wrong about that. But it is strange that they've used Simcoe and Citra and it's not really screaming out. Yeah, I mean, it is lovely. It's nice and sweet. It does have a bitter edge, and I hate to say it, but there is almost a slight, I say very, very slight because it is slight, but a slight soapiness to it. which sometimes you get with really, really heavily dry hopped beers, which this is going to be. So I say that the citrus isn't up front, and I'm surprised by that, but I guess it kind of makes sense, because when you make these New England IPAs, when you do this upfront dry hopping, hopping basically a day into fermentation, when the yeast act on the hops, they basically transform what's called a biotransformation. They transform some of the essential oils in the hops, which can turn those citrus flavors into maybe, I don't know, a softer citrus flavor. I mean, chemistry is very weird. Even just a slight change in a molecule can completely change the flavor. So what do we got? Let's just give my thoughts. Yeah, a slight grassy, piney scent. Soft mouthfeel, not so bitter, but more bitter than I was hoping for. And the hop character is very much that piney, grassy flavor as well. So the brains behind this beer, it's quite a nice story for me. I spent a lot of time in Huddersfield, basically, did my 8 years of uni there. Magic Rock, founded in Huddersfield back in 2011, so they're kind of the big brother here. I've discussed Magic Rock before. Great brewery, great tap room, great events go on there. Salt Beer Factory are kind of the little brother in this. I imagine this collaboration is almost, that's the way I kind of see this. It's a big brother, little brother type thing. Salt Beer Factory are from Saltaire, which is just, I don't know, a 40-minute drive if you don't take the motorway from Huddersfield. Salt Beer Factory, quite new, founded in 2018. They seem to be doing really, really good stuff. I'm not super familiar with them, but I have come across them a little bit. So this is really... this is really a marriage made in heaven. You got it's clash of the tap rooms, clash of the breweries, clash of the events. They're both doing really similar things. So seeing these two come together in a beer like this is absolutely awesome. Right then, let's sum this thing up. Is it a good beer? Have I had a ripe time? I certainly haven't been able to figure out what the pun is, if there is one. Because if there's no pun, then it's just a bit of a weird name, right? I don't know. Right, okay, so I said earlier that this beer wasn't as hazy as I wanted it to be. So what I'm gonna do is what I've done in previous videos, where I'm just gonna give the can a little swirl, and I'll pour the rest out. I'm going to be honest, that didn't really do what I thought it was going to do. This must be a really fresh beer. Well done, Tesco. So, I mean, the appearance is still very nice. Good head, kind of a glowing light straw colour. The haze is there. It's not opaque. But it is there. Now, the carbonation is low, which is good. It's kind of what I want in a beer like this. Let's, so the aroma, it's one of those classic hop aromas, because it's a bit of a mishmash of everything. It's piney, it's grassy. There is a slight, now that it's warming up, I guess there is a slight tropical edge to it, but I wouldn't say that that's what you're looking for in this. This reeks of pine to me. Yeah. I said earlier at the beginning, one of the hallmarks of this style is a real soft, real soft mouthfeel. If I was a lesser man, I'd describe it as a pillowy mouthfeel, but I won't do that. So pillowy mouthfeel. It is. It's very soft on the palate, and it's really nice and soft on the palate. That softness leaves you with a real appreciation of the sweetness that is imparted by that Munich malt and that golden promise. What I will say, though, if I can be critical here, what I will say is there's a little bit too much bitterness in this for me. The aftertaste of this is quite bitter. It's kind of just sitting right on my tongue there, and there is that soapiness to it. I mean, I'm not going to say they've done something wrong, because I imagine that's exactly what they were going for. What I will say is, in my mind, and if I were making a New England IPA, I would want to avoid that at all costs. I'm of course a chemist and not a brewer, so maybe you shouldn't be listening to me. But yeah, that bitterness is slightly disappointing. The haze isn't as strong as I wanted it to be, but it's a pretty good beer. If this beer were a song, I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna say it with a little wry smile on my face, because I like this song, and it's surprising that I like this song. It's Sign of the Times by Harry Styles. First off, I think the main reason I chose this song is because when I first read Ripe Times, whatever that means, that song just popped into my head. But it kind of makes sense. It's sort of like, you know what? I'm just going to leave you with the fact that it makes sense, and I'm not going to go into my limited knowledge of Harry Styles and One Direction and their past, because it is very limited, and I don't want it to sound like I know loads about it. Guys, head down to Tesco, this is where I got this from, or anywhere else that sells Ripe Times. The breweries themselves, of course, in this time, this strange ripe time, are in need of custom, so maybe head to the breweries themselves and buy yourself one of these things. It's a good beer. So get down to the breweries, buy yourself one. If you like this beer and your local bottle shop is open and serving, get in touch with them and tell them that you enjoy a ripe old time and that you'd like something similar. Now that the New England IPA gates are open, there are loads out there to choose from. There are loads of breweries churning these things out. It's a real deep well. So head out there and grab yourselves one. In the meantime, guys, cheers.